HOA burned my police motorcycle for not joining, then found out I'm a state trooper. I had always known that homeowners associations, HOAs, could be power-hungry, but I never imagined they'd go as far as arson. My name is Jake Morrison, and I've been a state trooper for over a decade. My job is to serve and protect, but I never thought I'd be taking on my own neighborhood's HOA. It all started when I moved into a quiet, upscale suburb just outside of town. The house was perfect, large backyard, a spacious garage, and just enough privacy to make it feel like home. There was an HOA, but the listing agent had assured me that the property I purchased was outside its jurisdiction. That meant I had no obligation to pay their ridiculous fees or abide by their increasingly absurd rules. But the HOA president, a man named Richard Calloway, didn't see it that way. The HOA's first warning within days of moving in, I found a letter in my mailbox from the HOA. It was a friendly reminder that all homeowners in the community were expected to pay a $600 yearly fee and follow community guidelines, including the prohibition of commercial or service vehicles in driveways. I knew where this was going. My police motorcycle, a department-issued Harley-Davidson, was parked in my driveway when I wasn't on duty. It wasn't just for show. I often rode it home after long shifts, saving fuel and allowing me to respond quickly if needed. I politely informed the HOA that I wasn't a member and that my home was legally exempt from their rules. I expected that to be the end of it. I was wrong. A few days later, another letter arrived. This one was not so friendly. It demanded that I remove the unauthorized vehicle from my driveway or face fines. Again, I ignored it. Then the threat started. Escalation and intimidation. It began subtly, neighbors giving me side eyes, hushed whispers as I walked by, and trash mysteriously appearing on my lawn. I shrugged it off. After all, I had faced worse on the job. But then, one night, I heard a loud bang outside. I rushed out to find a brick had been thrown through my front window. Attached was a note. HOA rules apply to everyone. Get rid of the bike or else. That's when I decided it was time to push back. I set up security cameras around my property and made sure my department knew about the ongoing harassment. A few days later, I caught Richard Calloway himself creeping around my driveway, snapping pictures of my bike. When I confronted him, he smirked. "You think you're special because you're a cop?" he sneered. "We don't want your kind ruining the look of our community." I could barely contain my anger, but I held my ground. "My home is outside HOA jurisdiction, Richard. If you continue to harass me, I'll be filing a report." His face darkened. "You'll regret this." I should have known he meant it. The fire had happened on a Sunday night. I had just finished a long shift when I pulled into my driveway. As soon as I shut off my bike and headed inside, I smelled smoke. By the time I ran back out, it was too late. My police motorcycle was engulfed in flames. Flames licked the sides of my garage, threatening to spread to my home. I called 911 and grabbed a hose, trying to contain the fire until the fire department arrived. Despite my efforts, the bike was a total loss. The fire chief later confirmed that it was arson. Someone had doused my motorcycle with gasoline and set it ablaze. I knew who was behind it. The trap, rather than retaliate in anger, I did what any good cop would do. I set a trap. I reported the arson to my department and had security cameras installed in even more hidden locations around my home. Then, I purchased a new police bike and made sure to leave it parked in the same spot. Sure enough, it didn't take long. One night, Richard Calloway and two of his HOA board members showed up, carrying gas cans. This time, I had everything on camera. As soon as they started pouring gasoline, I stepped outside with my badge in one hand and my service pistol holstered at my hip. "Going somewhere, gentlemen?" Richard's face went pale. "We were just arson," I said flatly. "That's a felony." The other two men bolted, but Richard was frozen in place. Within minutes, backup arrived, and he was arrested on the spot. The footage I provided sealed his fate. The aftermath: Richard was charged with multiple crimes, including arson, vandalism, and harassment. His HOA cronies weren't as lucky as they had fled, but they soon found themselves implicated as well. The HOA itself crumbled under the scandal. Residents, horrified by what had happened, voted to dissolve it completely. It turned out that Richard had been extorting homeowners for years, pocketing extra fees, while bullying anyone who didn't comply. As for me, justice was served. My department issued me a new police motorcycle, and I became something of a local legend in the neighborhood. To this day, I still live in that house, free from the tyranny of an HOA. And every time I ride my bike up my driveway, I smile, because now, no one dares to tell me where I can or can't park. The fallout after Richard's arrest, things escalated even further. News of the HOA scandal spread like wildfire. The local news stations picked up the story, running headlines like, HOA president arrested for arson, targeted state trooper. People were furious. Many of my neighbors had already disliked the HOA but had been too afraid to speak out. Now that the truth was out, the floodgates opened. Residents came forward with their own horror stories. A retired couple revealed they had been fined thousands for unauthorized lawn decorations because their grandkids had left toys in the yard. A single mother was nearly evicted because she had parked her car on the street for one night when her driveway was full. Another homeowner admitted that Richard had suggested they pay him personally to avoid citations. With so many people coming forward, law enforcement launched a full investigation into the HOA's activities. What they uncovered was even worse than I expected. The HOA's criminal empire. The investigation revealed that Richard and his inner circle had been running the HOA like a personal mafia. They had embezzled HOA funds. Thousands of dollars were missing from the HOA's budget, funneled into personal accounts. Forged documents. Fake violation notices were sent to homeowners, demanding they pay fines that didn't exist. Threatened residents. People who questioned the HOA's authority often found their cars mysteriously vandalized. The most shocking discovery? The HOA had no legal authority over my property or half of the neighborhood. Richard had lied for years, intimidating homeowners into paying fees they didn't owe. When the county records were reviewed, it was clear his power was a complete sham. The legal reckoning. With all the evidence piling up, the district attorney filed multiple charges against Richard and his cronies, including arson, fraud, embezzlement, harassment, extortion. Richard's smug demeanor disappeared when he realized he was looking at 25 years in prison. His two accomplices, the HOA treasurer and vice president, quickly turned on him to reduce their own sentences. In court, Richard tried to play the victim. He claimed he was just maintaining community standards and had only gone after me because I was a dangerous influence. The judge didn't buy it. With overwhelming evidence, Richard was sentenced to 18 years behind bars. His accomplices received lighter sentences but were still convicted. The HOA is no more. Once Richard was locked away, the neighborhood wasted no time dismantling the HOA. A community vote was held, and by a landslide, the HOA was permanently dissolved. Without the HOA's interference, homeowners were finally free to live peacefully. No more pointless fees, no more ridiculous citations, just a normal neighborhood again. Justice served one day. About a year later, I was in my driveway polishing my new police motorcycle when a neighbor walked up. "Glad to see you're still here," he said. "You really saved this neighborhood." I chuckled. "Just doing my job." He grinned. "We're all glad you never joined that damn HOA." "Me too."